Hi, welcome to another weekly session of coding discussion, reading, everything. And today's session we'll start from ResNet 50 implementation, code implementation of ResNet 50 with the help of TensorFlow. Previously, we implemented GoogleNet and BGG19, but this one is bit complex to understand, and the is bit is an extension or is an extrapolation of what we did previously in VGGNet and in the GoogleNet paper. This one is an extension of how it tries to solve the problem of vanishing gradients without it solves the problem of vanishing gradients, and it achieves a greater performance, greater accuracy, even with when the width or the depth of the neural networks increases. So let's explore, let's see how it goes. And not only ResNet, we'll explore more topics, more interesting topics. So let's start. So our topic begins with ResNet. And please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do share with your friends. Please hit the subscribe button. All right, let's begin. So in ResNet you will have the architecture. Let me share the screen. So in ResNet architecture, this is, if you search for ResNet architecture, this is how you will majorly observe. As well as in the official implementation, you will have convolution block, identity block, and the main structure. So if you remember what happened in the GoogleNet, you had the main structure, and out of it, in some instances, you were taking the output and storing it in the softmax. And you were taking the output of the softmax, intermediate softmax outputs, and adding up in the loss values. So rather than doing this and contributing to the loss values, why not take the outputs and keep passing it in the main structural, so which acts as a repeater or amplifier and does not let the gradients to vanish. Isn't it interesting? It's extremely interesting. So let's explore the paper. This is the idea, and the better part is, no matter how, if the deeper the ResNet, the better the performance, which is contrary or which is anti-intuitive, right? So this is a 34 layer ResNet. We have an image, we have this, we have that. So let's see. And all right, so let's begin. So we'll be returning the model, and this is a better way. This is how you would call as a functional representative of a functional API model. So functional representatives won't help here, but if you have a generic ResNet where you can call ResNet 18, ResNet 50, ResNet 150 all in one, then it does definitely help. All right. Or if you want to change the parameters, some parameters, so you can do the generic parameters, and then a functional approach is better. So first is the image. Image goes in, we say image equal to input tf keras layers dot input shape equals 224, 224, 3. Now the input goes through a convolution of 7 cross 7. Hey, you can do padding over here, but we'll explore it later. 0 padding, 2-dimensional. You can do 2 cross 2 padding, you can do 3 cross 3 padding. 3 cross 3 would end up making it 230 cross 230. It's just a good method, or you can not do, depending upon this. Ultimately up to you. Ultimately, the main part which is included in the architecture is convolution 2-dimensional, wherein the filter is 7 cross 7, and the kernel size is 7 cross 7. The filter is 64. We have strides equals to 2, and what else we have? Padding. Is the padding valid or the padding same? Hopefully it would be valid, because if we want same, then the output would be the same. So we don't want same padding, we want a difference to happen. So padding would be valid. Proceeding forward to the other part is pooling. X equals tf dot keras dot layers dot max pool 2-dimensional. The pooling part is quite interesting. So what we have in the pooling part, we have pooling part. So right after each convolution, what we need to do is x equals to tf is written over here. We adopt patch normalization right after each convolution and right before activation, right? So tf dot layers and the max pool we have stride equals to 2, stride equals to 2, and 7 cross 7 64 stride 2, 3 cross 3 max pool, 3 cross 3 max pool strides equals to 2. Let's not begin with the functional approach. Let's start normally. We'll put it in a function. Let's see everything goes well or not. 55, 55, 64. Well, we wanted something else. We wanted 56, comma 56. We can have that. tf class layers dot 0 padding 2 dimensional 1 cross 1 x. Perfect. Now since we have this, now begins the main thing, which is the convolution blocks. So these are the different blocks for ResNet 50. This is the number of filters for each block. For ResNet 101, this is the architecture. For ResNet 152, this is the thing. So let us begin for ResNet 50. So let me explain you what the block is. This is a block. This is what a block would look like. This is one block, this is one block, this is one block. And if it is a dotted, it is a convolution block. If it is a solid line, if it is an identity block. The first one is a convolution block with stride equal to 1. You're not making any changes. Apart from it, every other is making changes, right? So let us begin. Here you can see 3 layers into 3. So these are the 3 layers in a block, be it convolution, be it identity. In every block. So these are the 3 layers in each block, and how the blocks are arranged. First is convolution. Into 3 means first is convolution, the other are identity. 1 is convolution, rest 3 are identity. 1 is convolution, rest 5 are identity. Alright, so let's implement this. So what happens over here is 3 is the number. So x equals conv block, which we will define. Here we will define x, we will define the filters, and we will define strides if any. Because for the first one we have stride 1 cross 1, for the rest of this is 2 cross 2, right? Apart from it, the other 2 are identity blocks. So 1 we have used for convolution, the other 2 are identity blocks. Identity block x filters Next we have here x equals, again we have 4 blocks wherein filters. Now let's define the filters. Filters would be 64, 64, 256. 64, 64, 256. Now we have the next block. We have entered the next block. The next block is 128. First one is a conv block where we have x. The other part is 128, 128 and 512. The rest of it is identity block x 128, 128, 512 x equal to identity block x 128 128 512 x apart from this we have this 256 256 and 1024. Also we have 256 256 1024. No, we have identity block here. Why am I writing this stuff? 3 4 5 5 and 1 6. Perfect. Now we have this reft, which is x equals convolution block, where x we pass and the other r is 512 1024 or 2048. Once we are done with this, we'll finalize it with the help of average pooling 2D layer, average pooling 2-dimensional, pass the x goes through a dense layer with 1000 ImageNet classes, activation as softmax. However, if you try to implement, it won't happen because we have not defined the convolution, neither we have defined the identity block. So let's define convolution block. In the convolution, we have two paths which will be evident from here. This is the convolution block and this is the identity block. So the rule which ResNet specifies is you have a convolution, then you will have patch norm, and then you will have the activation. This is the order which is specified by the ResNet paper, which is highly debatable. But if you want to we'll discuss it in the next video or in the next to next video or in any of the upcoming videos. Till then, do remember to hit the subscribe button, do hit the like button, and share with your friends. Yeah, and write down your comments. Visit the Data Science in AI website. Join our Slack community. There's a lot to do, which you have not done. Alright, let's continue. So let's implement the convolution block. So input goes in and it comes out with through parts. First part and the second part. So we'll do path 1, we'll do path 2, and we'll return by doing tf keras layers dot add path 1 and path 2. So after adding, what happens? After adding, you need to pass in the relu activation. So let's do this. But let's primarily try to implement the convolution block. So first part is something like this. You get a convolution 1 cross 1. to define the number of filters. So we'll have 3 filters, and we'll obtain the filter 1, filter 2, and filter 3. We'll extract out the 3 filters from the filters which we'll pass as a list. It will be filter 1 for the first one. The first one is a convolution 1 cross 1, obviously, and it has a stride of 2. First one has a stride of 1, the rest of this have strides of 2. So let's default it with strides 2, 2. For the first one, it would be strides equals to 1 cross 1. No, strides would be equal to strides for the first one, and if it is the other way around, it would be 1 cross 1. So what we need to do over here is strides 1 cross 1, which we did. Alright, perfect. I think I confused you over here. For the first entry point, strides could be 1 cross 1. For the rest of the convolution calls, strides would be 2 cross 2. So we are defining it with the initial value, default value is strides equal to 2 cross 2. And that would be always carried over. But when it will be 1 cross 1, we will change. It will automatically get changed. So we have defined the filters. Let us define the kernel size. Kernel size is 1 cross 1 for the first one. And for the first one, the kernel size is 1 cross 1. Second is 3 cross 3. Strides we have defined. Padding, we need to ensure that padding is valid for the first one. After passing through a convolution, it will go through batch normalization. After passing through batch normalization, it needs to go through the activation, which is the ReLU. And the process repeats for another convolution layer, which is 3 cross 3. Here we are not doing any changes. Therefore, kernel size is 3 cross 3, but strides is 1 cross 1. And padding shall be same, because we are not looking for any spatial changes. We are looking for the convolution filter changes. If anything confuses, look at this formula. If something else confuses, I'll get to convolution, what a convolution layer does, the brief inspection of convolution layer in one of the upcoming videos. Let's do path 1 equals df keras layers. Batch normalization, and then we have x. And what else is left to be done? Path 1 is again passed to a filter 3, 1 cross 1, no point of strides. Padding, strides is 1 cross 1, padding will be valid. Nothing else. Since we want to add, or logically it should be filter 3, because else we won't be able to add, right? The number of filters should be filter 3. Now what you want to do is, you want a double halving effect, because it was halved over here, so it will have the same strides effect. Half or if it keeps the same depends on it. and the filter is 1 cross 1, kernel is 1 cross 1. Let's see, x and path 2 goes through tf keras layers dot patch normalization and path 2. This is our implementation of this. If we were to implement convolution identity block, something similar would happen. Filters will obtain. We won't have any path 2. All we'll do is return tf.keras.layers.add path 1 and x. I think this is what it is. Let's see how it goes. Let's see. Whoa. So we have error in the very first frame. Output. Yep, it was path 1 that needs to be carried forward, not the input x again and again, as you would be redefining unnecessarily. Strides is not defined. Yes, strides need not to be defined. And here we go. I think we are done with this. Let's see if the model is converted or not. So let's modularize it and copy. I'm not changing any of this. Just put it in a function def resnet 50, and we would return tf keras dot models.model. Inputs would have input, outputs would have x, and that's it. And there you go, you have your ResNet model. What? What is it? tf.keras.give tensor flow. And there you have your ResNet 50 model right in front of you. This is the beauty of it, and I hope the implementation was clear and understandable. Let's see another topic, and this covered almost half of our session. Alright, take care. Let's move on to the next topic. Yeah. And please hit the subscribe button. I repeat again and again. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Please share with your friends and any data scientist you know in your connections. If you have anything to suggest, please write down that in the comment section. And if you want to join my Slack channel, the links are down in the comment section. If you want to join my Slack community, the links are down in the Slack community description. Let us move to the final topic of the session, and this would be GradCam. Why GradCam? Because this helps you to understand what the neural network, basically the classification model, is trying to understand, and what it has actually, what the weights are focusing on when you pass in the input image. What are the weights focusing on? Why this was developed? This was developed as a debugger tool. So you need to understand why was it developed and why was it used. That's why that's how you will be able to actually utilize it and able to understand the essence of it. So for classification models, you actually do not have any way to understand. So I'm given an image, right? Let's say for a single instance of any image, that's fine. But when there's a case of multi-level, there's a cat, there's a dog, there's multiple things, and then you want to obtain the predictions, that becomes actually difficult. That's not the case with object detection or object localization, because you're actually being provided with a bounding box that is actually localizing it. But what is the thing that is forming the basis for you to understand that this is my classification model, and based on this and based on the given input image, I was able to obtain an output, right? What was the thing that made my decision? So that was the essence, and that was the starting point, or that was the inception that gave rise to class activation maps. Class activation maps is a technique wherein it utilizes it. There is a necessary condition that there needs to be a global average pooling layer, and based on the global average pooling layer, you will be able to obtain the class activation maps. So that was a major hindrance with the class activation maps, and that was a major hindrance with the modern day algorithms. Modern day algorithms need to be modified. So what you had to do is modify the final layers and then add global average pooling, retrain, then add global average pooling. So that was a bit cumbersome and was not so efficient and was not convenient. So what we came out with is gradients and class activation maps both combined together gave rise to GradCams. And GradCams is what it does. It is able to provide you with the activation map. What the activation map is, based on the, so what it does is tries to extract out the last convolution layer. Last convolution layer is will always be there in no matter what the architecture is. There will be always the last convolution layer. So if you have the last convolution layer, you'll be able to extract it, and once you extract it, you will be able to process the GradCam. So that why it was a bit universal. So rather than global average pooling, you are moving towards a generic approach which is compatible with all of the architectures, and that was the target, that was the idea behind it. So I'll be referring to the Keras official blog, wherein we have a discussion about GradCam class activation visualization. So this is an interesting article, and this is widely used, so why not discuss it? So this is my initial setup, the imports and the image. So we'll try to predict the car, and yeah, let's see. So there are two parts of this thing. First part would be implementing heat maps, but that's not it. Once heat map is obtained, visualizing and overlaying the heat map obtained with the image is a task in itself. So we'll be doing it two parts. Let's complete the first part. In the first part, let's begin. So first part starts with obtaining the grad model. So let's take a look how it is. You obtain the grad model, then we obtain the gradients. Obtain the gradients and the channel class, and obtain the predictions under gradient tape. Under gradient tape, we do this. Then what happens is you calculate gradients. You calculate gradients, then you average out the mean intensity of gradients. Mean intensity of the gradients. Once you do that, what you do is try to obtain the heat map. Obtain heat map by multiplication of the gradients with last convolution output. Normalize the heat map. Why are we approaching this method, and why not we are defining a function? Because I want you to visualize each and every step and debug. So we'll be in a debugging mode rather than a functional mode. So once we are able to understand what we are trying to do, then we'll move on to define. So function making is not difficult. So what you want to do is select all, press the tab, and it will be aligned towards right, and define a function on top of it. That's it. So, but understanding what we are doing at every step, I think that is important. So let's begin with grad model. Now, what the grad requirement of grad model is: tf.class.models.model. Inputs would be definitely is fixed model.input, right? That is the model input. Now, what else needs to be done is the outputs. Outputs, we need two outputs. First is model dot. So what layer do we need? We need this particular layer, convolution, last convolution layer name. So model dot get layer last convolution layer name. I want the output of it, as well as I want model dot output. That's what my model should look like. Let's see. If we have done it correctly, we'll obtain something like this. Or why not plot the model? So let it be. I think this is correct. Let's move on to the next part. This is under gradient tape. So with, how do you define a gradient tape? With TensorFlow gradient tape as tape. So we have defined the gradient tape. Now within the tape, what does it help? So whatever operations you do within the gradient tape scope, it remains in the tape even outside the scope. So it is saved in the tape. So I am about to obtain the predictions, last convolution layer output. Added to it, the predictions will be equal to grad model, wherein I pass the image array. Based on this, I want to obtain the values, the few things which need to be done. First is model dot so this is what needs to be done. Model dot layers, last layer, take the last layer, make its activation as none, because we don't want to apply the softmax, we want to obtain the final, just the values. Once you do that, what happens next is, now image array is there, we need to obtain the prediction index. So prediction index is not there, so that's not an issue. The prediction index is, why the concept of prediction index, let me tell you why. Prediction index is something, if you don't define, it will highlight the one which it is actually predicting, right? And if you want to define that I want to debug for this particular class instance, so no matter how many classes there might be in the image frame, it will be able to find out and visualize for that particular class index. So that is the role of prediction index. That's why prediction index is used. So if preliminarily we will do like this, if pred index is none. I hope you understand the reason and logic behind it. So the logic behind it is simple, is just that the prediction index needs to be, if you want to define that I want this particular class, so you can refer to image net labels and mention the specific prediction index, right? Now what we have over here is prediction index would be tf.argmax or np.argmax, doesn't matter. You can do np.argmax as well. np.argmax predictions, axis is -1, right? You can define, you cannot define as well, entirely up to you. So once we've obtained the prediction index, now we want to obtain the class channel, and that would be equal to predictions corresponding to the prediction index. Those value of predictions corresponding to the prediction index. We've obtained the weights corresponding to the class index. This is obtained. Now we are about to calculate the gradients. So how to calculate the gradients? So let's see how the values are, right? Preds dot, let's see how preds is. Not this high, not understandable. Let's see how it is. Predictions dot shape 1,1000 image net shape, right? Now image net shape you're obtaining 0, so you're repeating the first input. Let's say, so it will be a simple array of 1000 and finding the maximum argument, and that would be my prediction index. Now what the class channel holds for us, you can see class channel holds a tensor with the value of 9.725. Softmax not applied, softmax can be applied later. We have removed the softmax activation. Now what we need to do is calculate the gradients, and gradients will be equal to tape dot gradient, wherein I'll pass tape dot gradient, I'll pass the class channel value, and the last convolution layer output. So whatever the activation, whatever the output of the last convolution layer, and the thing for that particular index, whatever the value was there, whatever the prediction output was there for that particular class, that needs to be automatically differentiated with the last convolution layer output. We have obtained gradients. Now after obtaining gradients, you need to find the, let's see how the gradients is. Thousand, 1, 10, 10, 2048, right? Now what we are about to do is pooled gradients, which will be equal to, what will it be equal to? You want to find the average intensity, tf dot reduce mean for gradients across all the axes. So you want to obtain the average intensity of the gradients, and that is how you are about to obtain, right? Now after you have obtained, let's see how it is now. Pooled gradients dot shape 2048, that is the average output of the gradients, right? Now once we have obtained the gradients, mean intensity of gradients, we will it's now our turn to obtain heat map by multiplication of the gradients with the last convolution layer output. So my heat map would be equal to last convolution layer output multiplied by pooled gradients. Now the fact is it is 2048 single dimensional, and this is 1 cross 10 10 10 something like that. Let me cross verify what is last convolution layer output shape. It is 1 10 10 48. So first I need to remove the batch thing. I can remove the batch thing by doing 0. Now I need to multiply this with pooled gradients, right? So what I'm going to do, 2048 from here and the 2048 from pooled gradients match. Here we have 10 10 2048, and over here I'll have 10 2048 cross comma 1. So the final output would be 10 10 1. I hope you are able to catch. Ten ten 1. Now what Keras does is it squeezes it so as to remove the last particular thing. You can also squeeze it. np dot squeeze, tf dot squeeze, whatever you want to do. Heat map, you have squeezed the heat map, and once you've squeezed the heat map, you would like to normalize it. So normalize the heat map. How do you normalize the heat map? How do you normalize the heat map? You normalize the heat map by saying that heat map is equal to tf dot maximum heat map 0. So you're removing the negative values, and over here you can do heat map dot min value, I guess. How do you do the normalization? Finding the min minus max, or what do you do? Max value. Reduce max. Yeah. So what does it have? tf dot reduce max heat map. So this is the max value. That is what you're about to divide with. I think that's what it is. Yep, that's what it is. And that is the heat map at its best. Let's make it from TensorFlow to NumPy. Now let's check how the heat map is. Heat map dot shape, it would be 10 10. And what the heat map looks like, this is what the heat map looks like. If I want to visualize heat map, this is what the heat map would look like. This is just the heat map, which is 10 cross 10 at the most simplest form. Now what needs to be done is visualizing and overlaying the heat map obtained with the visualizing the heat. So we have obtained the heat map. Now this needs to be superimposed with the actual image so that you get to know which parts are this. So you're not able to understand, although we are able to understand this is the middle of the image. This is exactly this part of the image, right? But to have a better look and better understanding of what this is, so let's get it done. Let's move on. Now let us move on to the visualization part of heat maps. And once we have obtained the heat maps, I don't think visualization part isn't complex. So it's all about how you want to obtain your output. So input shape was this 531, and if you are confused that how did I obtain this part, image array I have previously specified that this just load the image array. That's what it is. So just load the image array. Simple. I don't want to extend the session unnecessary. I'm skipping over a few steps so you can understand what the image array is. Just input mention the image, load the image. We have mentioned the image path, right? We have obtained the image path. You can obtain the image array. It's quite simple. Just define this function. What do you want to do? What you want to do is get the image, then expand dimensions. To obtain predictions, what you need to do? Get the image, expand dimensions, and pre-processes. So that's how you're gonna obtain your image array. Once you obtain, this is how your heat map is obtained. Once your heat map is obtained, then you need to again redefine the image. You need to redefine this so as to obtain the image 1 as per the model. Once you define the image 1 and resize the heat map with, so heat map was in the range of 0 to 1. You need to resize it and rescale it to 255, denormalize it, and make it int. That's what you will obtain. This is not a proper visualization, but yeah, we can make it work with that. That's what it is. But if you check out the official implementation, that is a bit complex way of obtaining what the superimposition. So what you do is load the image, obtain the image array, and then they are trying to do the color map thing. So they are using color map thing using Jet. Then you're utilizing the RGB values out of the heat map. Then a lot of pre-processing goes into it. Then finally obtains such a beautiful superimposition. So that is possible. That is definitely possible. You can check out other resources as well for obtaining the superimposition. But superimposition is not the complex part. Complex part is understanding what the heat map, how the heat map is obtained. So how the heat map is obtained. We have done it step by step with debugging approach. So first is remove the activation, obtain the grad model. Once you obtain the grad model, you need to specify. Either you can specify the prediction index, or if you do not specify the prediction index, what will it do? It will take out the one which it predicts on its own. So let's say what is in the current frame. I am there, the headphone is there, and multiple things can be there. So let's say there's a cat, there's a dog, there's multiple things in the frame. So either you want to go for automatic detection and its visualization, or you want to be specific. If you want to be specific, you should mention the prediction index. If you do not mention the prediction index, it will do automatic. If you do mention the prediction index, it will extract out the value for that particular prediction index. Once it does, it will do automatic differentiation using tape.gradient, and you need to find the average intensity rather than the complete overall intensity. Once you find the average intensity, you will be good to go and proceed with the heat map approach. Heat map is just the multiplication of the last layer convolution and the average intensities. So last layer convolution and the last layer output, the last convolution layer output, or whatever the convolution output you want, and the gradients for that. The convolution output and the gradients for that particular layer, the multiplication of that is the heat map. That's it. What is heat map? The last convolution layer, output of the last convolution, or any convolution layer, the output of the convolution layer and the corresponding output of the convolution layer and the corresponding average intensity of the gradients. The multiplication of the two gives us heat map. Then comes a lot of processing and pre-processing so as to obtain a visualization. So this is the heat map visualization I've obtained. This is a extremely trivial visualization. We can extend upon this. You can refer to the Keras official implementation. So what it does is superimposition in a very sophisticated manner. So you can look upon this, or if I come with a better and simpler approach, I will update the Colab notebook. You can always refer to the Colab notebook. That will be the most reliable source to check out. The video might not be updated, but the Colab notebook will always stay updated. Alright, take care. Bye-bye. And please do remember to hit the subscribe button down there. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share your comments, share your feedback, and don't forget to join the Slack channel. We are a growing community in there, and we share ideas, concepts, and logics. All right, take care. Bye bye.